Hey everybody, Matt Johnston here. It's been a while since I've done a video. Call it camera shyness. I don't know. But I wanted to put out a video because there's some new stuff that our friends at the Centers for Disease Control have put out involving testing, particularly viral testing. So for those of you who don't know, a viral testing allows for the test to be taken to determine if you have the antibodies associated with COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is the official sort of thing. So that test is a little bit different, and it's testing for the presence of antibodies. So the CDC has issued some guidance that is helpful for employers to understand what they are doing and to help sort of control the transmission and spread of the COVID-19 virus. So if you really want to read some, well, let's just face it, government bureaucratese, the link to the guidance and the resource document will be down below in the comments. So if you want something a little bit more practical, hang on, here we go. So the CDC has put things into 5 general categories of people, and it talks about these things. Now, one of the concepts that you have to be mindful of is what has become known as contact tracing, or more bureaucratically referred to as public health surveillance. I know there's quite a few people who are going to be a little nervous about government surveillance. I am one of those people to a certain extent. But it is what it is, and with the effort to sort of control the spread of the virus, whether you think that's a good idea or bad idea is neither here nor there. This is what the CDC is recommending. So the first category is individuals who are showing signs or symptoms that could be COVID-19. So not unsurprisingly, the recommendation is that you close or you isolate those employees off, you send them home and tell them to get tested, so they can determine if there has been if they are sick with COVID-19 or something else. So not unsurprising, pretty surprising, pretty standard sort of recommendation. The next up is testing individuals who are asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing any symptoms, and they've been in contact with recent known or suspected COVID-19 exposure. Just on a personal side note, my daughter had to have this done because she's getting ready to go to college and they are requiring the testing. So it's a blood test. They take a little bit out. They do whatever voodoo they do on it during the testing, and they get back to you with results. So if your employees have had contact with someone who is known or suspected to have COVID-19, you should recommend that they go get testing. I know, it's shocking, but that's what they recommend that you do. So, what does that testing going to look like? Well, it's generally, again, a blood test that they're going to be seeing. But here is an important part for employers to understand. If you are going to be doing this, and you have information that is related to the potential of somebody having COVID-19 or something else, you need to keep your trap shut. Not to the employee, but you do need to keep confidential information related to somebody's medical diagnoses. Now, what does that mean if you're starting to tell everybody that person works, that they need to go get COVID testing? Duh, they're going to know that somebody at the office has come into contact with COVID-19, may have been symptomatic, but they're going to know that. And the employees themselves may figure it out. But you, the employer, need to keep your mouth shut about it. If the employees figure it out, that's fine. But you, the employer, should not be revealing the name of anybody who has been tested or diagnosed with COVID-19. Okay, so those are people who are asymptomatic, but recent known or suspected exposure to COVID-19. So what about individuals who are asymptomatic but not known or suspected contact with COVID-19, but are in kind of high-risk situations or special situations? So what's a special situation? Well, uh, largely because I've been dying to get soccer back in my life, Major League Soccer has had their players in a bubble down, what's referred to as a bubble, down in Orlando, where they're going to be playing games over the next few weeks. And those players are getting tested on a regular basis with these sorts of things. So, so what does, you know, some of those players have come back and tested as positive. In fact, two teams have had to withdraw from the tournament as a result of it. But that's just me and my soccer thing. Sorry. Um, so, what can you be doing for employees who are asymptomatic without known contact, but there could be some special circumstances of exposure, whether healthcare workers or something like that? So, what you want to do is make people aware that testing is available. So, apparently, only employees who have been living under a rock or have just returned from Mars would be unaware of the availability of testing. Make them aware of the latency between exposure and development of a positive viral test. Basically, there can be a delay between your exposure and whether or not you show up with the antibodies. If you have workers who are new workers, they're coming back from a prolonged absence, or they're in other high-risk situations, you want to be aware of those workers and encourage them to get tested. And then you may want to share a number of employees who tested positive during previous rounds of testing. Okay, number of employees. Don't identify employees by name. Next category is testing to determine resolution of infection. I don't know what it means, but largely if you've been at home, so time since illness onset and time since recovery strategy, symptom-based. So what the CDC is talking about, I highly suggest you go over there and read that, because I got to tell you, I don't know what it means. Public health professionals might have a better understanding of it. I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but yeah. Bureaucraties, there you go. But check it out. And you do need to be cognizant of contact. So this is what the CDC calls public health surveillance, or what is colloquially called contact tracing. So if you receive information from an employee that they have tested positive on a viral test or another test, you want to take the time to figure out who it is that they came in contact with in the workplace. Now, workplace is going to be easier for your employees, so you can tell if somebody has been in contact with somebody. Um, if employee A works in an office with 5 other people, they've been in contact with those 5 other people. Where things get tricky is when you're dealing with the public. And this is where some information might be helpful coming from some other tools. So, many folks probably are not aware, but there is now a camera that is available that you can install in a workplace that can determine somebody's body temperature. So it's helpful to be able to tag somebody or to have an alarm that somebody's coming in with a high temperature. Interestingly enough, I have clients in the medical field who are putting that in, but I also question, well, what if somebody's coming in with a high temperature just because they happen to have, a cold or a fever or the flu, not COVID-19, just a regular, ordinary, fever. But they would get captured as well. So these infrared cameras allow you to determine if somebody has had it, and then you can go back and review, did they have, connection or contact with somebody? If it's dealing with customers, you may be able to reach out to those customers if you are able to identify them and say, hey, by the way, somebody at our office tested positive for COVID-19. You should probably think about getting checked out. So the surveillance sounds very Orwellian, I will admit. It sounds, if you're really a sci-fi fan, it sounds very Minority Report. But it is one way to help allow people to make decisions for themselves. So you can reach out to these folks and say, hey, by the way, you may have been exposed. We're not certain, but here's the availability of testing. We strongly suggest that you take a look at that. So work from that standpoint. So the guidance document itself is not horrible, other than the fact that it's written in bureaucratese by a bunch of scientists, but it's very, very helpful. If you have any questions about what you can and cannot do regarding your employees and communication of risk to your employees or to your customers, please, please, please consult an attorney before you start revealing names. If you're revealing the fact that somebody may have been exposed, that's okay. But you want to make sure that you are not revealing names that is private information, and you as an employer generally are not going to be covered with exemptions for revealing personal health information. So please, please, please consult an attorney before you start disclosing names. And as a general rule, don't disclose the names until an attorney says it's okay to do so. In the meantime, stay safe out there, and I will talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.